do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Okay. Hey, I'm Nessie. Last time you saw me, I was not in this avatar. I bought this last month, or the month before actually, via Patreon. Hope you like it. Gave Briley a show in it.
That's a story for a different day. Today, we're going to be
True.
talking about the crew and legacy media. I forget the term you.
Yeah, the games as a service, and like the games that rely on the central server to run.
Yeah, they especially with the crew, you can just flip a switch and they can have offline play, but they're just getting rid of it. Last I
Yeah.
heard. So I guess without
Yeah.
further ado, we'll dive into this video.
Hello, this is an update to the last
Hello.
video I did about the crew being shut down. A quick recap is Ubisoft is shutting down the crew at the end of March. That means it will become unplayable by literally everyone. This is one of the largest game shutdowns of this nature, so my plan is to use it to take any and all legal action I can against Ubisoft as a way of challenging the practice of destroying games, period. So even if you don't care about the crew, I'm using it as a means to an end of trying to halt the practice of companies destroying all future games of this type. I think this is our best shot. The stars are kind of aligned to finally do something about this problem. Now, in the previous video,
I do think this is a really important thing to broadly touch on to because like I don't have any personal connection to the crew, but who knows what other game that I do have an attachment to that this same thing could happen.
Case in point, look what I'm using.
Pardon?
Case in point.
Yeah, exactly.
stuff for help on this.
What I'm
and the
using
result
it
of it-
relies on a central server.
Yeah,
And it
that's true.
could be shut down by any time. This is why it's important.
Exactly. There's a lot of people that use VR chat. I hate how everything has to be subscription these days. Oh, I 100% agree. You should just pay your one time and then you get your content. It's how it should
Yeah.
run.
Good, very good so far. I've gotten so much feedback and information to work with that now I have much more defined plans. I feel like I'm 80% there now with what the plans are, though there's still a bunch of work left for me. So this video is to update everyone on what the plans are, get more feedback, and maybe help me shore up some of the weak spots so we can really do this thing full force come April. Oh, unless you're in France and bought a copy of The Crew, in which case you can help a lot as soon as today. I'll get to that. For most people though, we're not going to be doing much until April. This isn't Minority Report. We're not going to be prosecuting future crimes that haven't happened yet. What's happening right now is all research, planning, and prep work, which there's a ton of. Though for non-French owners of the crew, there's a few steps you can do before April that might help also. Oh boy, there's so much to cover. Some of this is just an update. The rest of this is practically a sequel to my Games as a Service is Fraud video. I'm going to split this up into two parts, the United States and the rest of the world. I'm going to talk about the rest of the world first, because it's more important to what's happening here, and if I talk about the US first, then people are going to think it's the end times, and that's really not the big picture here. Well, for video games anyway. Alright, so globally, let's talk about the plans. There are a lot of plans, but they're mostly a variation of the same thing. The core problem here is the game is being shut down that people paid for, and the publishing company, in this case Ubisoft, has essentially inserted themselves in between the customer and the game working, and have chosen to abandon that responsibility with no recourse for the customer. Well, in many countries, especially in the European Union and Australia, this is shady to the point of being probably illegal. And lo and behold, many of these countries have robust consumer protection agencies to contact for exactly this kind of situation. So that's the backbone to all of this. We want to get as many people in as many countries as we can to all contact these agencies as soon as the crew shuts down. Now that may sound kind of mild, but this approach has teeth. Remember how loot boxes got banned in Belgium? That's because people contacted their consumer protection agencies. Or hey, you know how you can refund games on Steam? That's kind of recent. You didn't used to be able to do that. Well, that's thanks to people contacting the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. They sued Valve, which forced them to offer refunds, and the market was forced to adapt.
Wait, they actually didn't offer refunds? I didn't know that about Steam. That's fucked up.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was like a big deal when they first started offering refunds. It was like a big news story.
Like
And like it turns out
2024 or
they didn't just do that in a vacuum. They did it because of that Australian court case. So yeah, what he's essentially saying is like at least like where consumer laws are the strongest, like there's like a really good chance like they could side with the consumer, and he wants people to take action whichever country you're in.
Yeah, exactly. A singular event in one country can lead to a ripple effect in multiple countries, like what happened with Steam. I'm just not sure what I can personally do besides, at least right now, besides raise awareness, because I've never bought The Crew. I just hate it when people invest their money in games and then it just goes up in smoke. Steam used to have a dog shit
Yeah.
policy. Huh. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
I also don't buy a whole lot of games on Steam. I kind of just stick with the deals, and then I just never get refunds because I pay much.
I bought the GOG version of Cyberpunk.
Oh, nice. GOG is based.
No regrets. Physical copy too, but with it's a technically a digital copy, but it's the DRM free. It's for the DRM free GOG.
Oh, nice.
This approach works. Or rather, it has overwhelmingly better odds of working than any other approach I know of. So the way I see it, my job is to organize everyone I can so that in April, as many owners of The Crew as possible can file complaints with all these agencies. And that means I need to make it as easy as possible for everyone with simple instructions of how to do that. And on top of that, get as much publicity as possible so we can reach as many as we can on this. Now, what makes this a pain in the ass for me is every country has a different agency and different procedures. So I need to detail as many as I can and get it translated for the non-English speaking ones. So I need to do this for Australia, but also France, and Germany, and Belgium, and Norway, and Finland, and blah! Oh, and for the EU countries,
Canada.
in addition to national consumer protection agencies, there are also ones for the European Union as well. So the workload on this has been getting a little insane, but I'll do it. I'm going all in on this. I want us to hit on all fronts that we can. My goal here is to try everything I can to end the practice of destroying games. And this is the best shot I've ever had to do so I better take it. Then, once I've done all the research on how the whole damn world can contact our consumer protection agencies, or at least a big chunk of the world, I'll get an easy-to-access multilingual website set up that will walk everyone in every country covered through the process. I may make a how-to video for each country also, just in case. Although this isn't going to be every country, just ones that have a sizable market and strong enough consumer laws to potentially do some damage. And once that is set up, then come either late March or definitely April, I'm going to try and raise as much publicity as I can on this. Besides making a short and to-the-point video here, I will reach out to any relevant YouTube channel, media source, whatever, that I can to try and promote this action. I'll be able to keep the message simple. And that message is if you own a copy of The Crew, you can go to the website, which will have an easy-to-remember name, which I'll reveal later. It will tell you exactly what to do for the country you live in. You file the complaint, boom, you're done. You may have just saved gaming as we know it. So that's the core plan. But wait, I said I'm going all in, and I mean that. So that means looking at bonus options also. Now these will vary by country, but in talking to people who emailed me, one person said something that stood out to me. We were talking about the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, and he said they won't pay much attention to individual complaints, even if they get a lot of them on the same issue. But a law firm contacting them with a formal complaint might. So in addition to getting people in Australia to contact the ACC, I'm looking into the possibility of getting a law practice to file a complaint with them in a professional capacity. That will cost money, but since they're just filing a complaint, that shouldn't be anywhere near the cost of a full lawsuit. So maybe I or we can swing that. I'll see. But then that got me thinking, what
That may be the better option for them to take. Because I don't know how many active people there are that are invested enough to really push for a class action lawsuit. So it'd be hard to generate the funds out of pocket for that kind of thing. But a complaint would definitely turn heads.
Yeah, he's not finished.
Oh yeah, we're 6 minutes into a 40-minute video. That's short and to the point.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward.
Yeah, I've seen this video before, to be fair.
Oh, okay. I have not pre-watched this.
Yeah, it's fair.
What about other countries? Is this just an Australian thing? Or we're doing the same thing in France, Germany, etc. help out also? I don't know. I need to figure that out. And speaking of which, another bonus option I'm considering is the vast majority of my audience is English speaking. But some of the countries with the strongest consumer laws are not. Their complaints could count a lot more than those of most English speakers. So it might not hurt to reach out to gaming YouTubers who speak different languages, like French or German especially. Additionally, if it's not too much and they were cool with it, maybe in April I could pay some of them to do a PSA in one of their videos to talk about this. It could be 10 seconds. They would just need to tell their audience if they own a copy of The Crew to go to the website I'll have set up for easy instructions in their own language on how to act on this. That might help us get a lot more action than we would otherwise. And that kind of brings me to the weak spots. The plan is not complete. Here are the weak spots I'm seeing so far. The first I just mentioned. Will a law practice filing a complaint with a consumer protection agency carry more weight in countries besides Australia? If so, which ones? And can you assist me in getting in touch with a lawyer in that country who could do this? Maybe get a price estimate, that sort of thing. The second is, while I'm compiling instructions for every country, some I've received more help on than others. This is going to become dated as soon as I post this video, but here's roughly where I am at the moment. There's a few issues we need to improve here. The first is due to the number of countries involved, I've been trying to delegate research to native residents of each country.
I actually didn't see Canada in that list, so maybe I can be of some service here.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, watch further.
Okay, fair enough. I will have to look into this.
Country whenever possible. Because if the country's language isn't English, and most of them aren't, that automatically puts residents in a better position to research than me. However, not everyone has reached out, so we have a lot of gaps still. If your country isn't listed here, it either means I haven't received any help on it and I haven't had time to research it myself yet, or else the consumer laws where you live are likely too weak to be able to make much of an impact. It's probably just me needing more help though. I will appreciate any and all help along these lines. Even if your country is listed here, I would rather 5 people give me redundant information than not have enough info. That's normally not true with me, but in this case, more is better. Any European Union country I do not have listed here automatically means I simply need more info on what the procedures are. There is no reason not to have as many EU residents as possible participate in this, since EU laws can have some punch in this area. As for other countries, the 2 big ones I don't have here that may help are Canada and Brazil. I have no idea how strong either of those countries' consumer protection laws are. They're certainly big markets. If I get the info on what to do, or if I have time later to research it, they'll be added to the list. Since I have limited time, I'm trying to prioritize where we'll have the most impact. That's determined by strength of existing consumer laws, then game market size. I think the most important countries in this will be France, Germany, and Australia. And the EU as kind of an amorphous blob, where smaller countries probably won't tip the scales by themselves, but collectively they add up. Oh, and the United Kingdom may be screwed. Someone was researching it and contacted the Advertising Standards Authority, and they said they have no jurisdiction and we would have to take this up with France. But maybe they could pass along the complaints? So everyone in the UK may be utterly and entirely powerless on this issue. I'm not sure. Stuff like this is why I'm making this video, so we can get some court.
Well, even people in the UK could still also, raise awareness on it, at the very least.
Corrections if anyone out there knows better what to do in all these situations. Because statistically, somebody does. Now this isn't as simple as just finding the Consumer Protection Agency and pointing people to a URL. I need to make this as close to a red carpet experience for anyone filing a complaint about the crew in April. That means having easy, step-by-step instructions everywhere we can. And also navigating all the subtleties of these different agencies ahead of time, so we're not sending people into dead ends or traps. For example, in Denmark, there's the Forbrugerklagenævnet, which could cover this situation, but the item has to have been purchased within 3 years and be worth at least about $158. Well, nobody paid that for the crew, and most buyers weren't in the past few years, so that's a complete dead end. So should I direct Danish people to the European Consumer Center instead? I'm not sure. That's just one example of dozens of situations like this. We need to blaze a trail for everyone, so complaining about Ubisoft to the correct authorities could not be easier in April. Even if we hit a dead end, knowing we have is useful information, because that means we should redirect our time elsewhere. Exhausting options is the name of the game. I just want to hammer every angle I can until it's a verified dead end or something goes through. And the final weak spot I'm seeing is I am not the master of publicity. It's dumb luck I have as large of an audience as I do. I've always prioritized trying to make my videos halfway decent over getting maximum exposure. I mean, hell, I still need to update thumbnails on my old videos. A lot of those are just automatically generated by YouTube. I've never liked having to do that crap. It's just sort of a necessary evil for me. But for once, this is a situation where I need attention on this. Just because I'll be trying to reach out to every channel I can on this in April, that doesn't mean I'll necessarily be the most effective. If media attention is your thing, maybe you have ideas on how we can get more publicity on this issue. And yes, I know this video is long, it isn't the most attention grabbing, but I'll have very short and clear messages on this for April. Plus, I don't need max publicity right now. I need it in a month and a half. Now, I may as well act as a spokesperson for the topic of destroying games, since I haven't seen anyone else step up to the same degree. But this doesn't even have to involve me. The important part is just getting people who own the crew to file a complaint with their agency come April. Though the caveat here, and I guess this is some foreshadowing, is European and Australian audiences are the priority. American ones, while they can help, maybe, are going to be way less valuable for this effort. So you need to go all Euro and Aussie on your promotion to maximize our chances. Anyway, if you think you can help with anything I've mentioned, please contact me. Don't assume I have everything taken care of. I'll be trying my best here, but this is a global campaign, so it'd be nice to have more hands on deck. A quick recap, this is the stuff I could use the most help with.
Just going to pause on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Contact consumer protection agencies in your country, especially non-English ones. Contacting organizations in your country directly by phone or email to get advice/information on how to proceed with the crew. Contacting law firms in your country to see if they might be able to assist in the process. See if they can help/find out approximate fees. Publicity promotion for April. I can definitely help with that personally, but I am very limited by my audience. Translation help for non-English language. I cannot help with that. I only speak English. Other advice/assistance you think might be useful.
Now, not everyone's going to be able to help with this, but if you can, you might be what makes the difference between this being successful or not. We don't know. Remember, the crew is just the vessel for taking action here. If we have even a few victories, that could literally stop almost all games in the future from being destroyed. So let's try to do it right. And on that note, while the main push is in April, there are some things owners of the crew can do now. First, let's start with France. France almost has too many options for where to take this. It's a bit overwhelming. However, perhaps the most powerful one is French citizens can summon a legal mediator if companies refuse to resolve problems with them. It was added recently as a measure to prevent companies from walking all over people. This potentially has so much power. Unfortunately, it all...
Why can't everywhere be like that? Oh my god, that would make life so much better.
And yeah, he goes into more detail.
Also involves a few steps and could result in up to 2 months lag time. Hence why I'm encouraging people to start on this now. So here's a guide I've collaborated with for the first step. You simply need to write an official letter to Ubisoft expressing your complaint. Now, of course, Ubisoft will just tell you to go pound sand, but this is a necessary step for summoning the mediator who will have some legal power over this. So here, I'll walk you through the directions. Unfortunately, in English. I had 2 years of French in high school, yet I've forgotten almost every single thing. Je ne parle pas français. Okay, first, this is only for people who still have a proof of purchase for the crew. So,
I forgot a lot of Spanish.
Write a letter to Ubisoft, but be sure to hit these points here. Your full name, date of when you purchased the game, and for how much. Tell them you learned about Ubisoft's plans to make the crew unusable starting in April. You find this surprising and completely unacceptable. Say it is surprising. This will help our legal stance. Even if you're as cynical as I am, technically that's not a lie. I mean, nobody really knew if it was going to shut down until December 14th. Say that you find this a violation of your consumer rights, and it might not hurt to mention the Code de la Consommation. Say you want the game updated or fixed so that Ubisoft support is no longer necessary. And finally, say that if you do not get a satisfactory answer, you will be contacting a mediator about this. Then you can go ahead and mail it at this address. Hopefully you can navigate the options to mail it. Oh, and since it's registered mail, this will cost 6.6 euros. But if you email me a copy of your receipt showing you mailed it, just ask and I will personally reimburse you. You will not have to spend anything on this. Additionally, if Ubisoft ghosts you and doesn't send a reply, they can also send you a reminder after 2 months. So you won't have to remember anything either.
It just shows how committed he is to this cause.
I'll cover all the next steps later on and on the website I'll launch. Mailing Ubisoft is the important step for now. Do this and we'll be on our way to getting something done. Okay, so that's France for now. But there's a couple things other owners of the game can do to prepare for April. The first is contact Ubisoft and tell them you would like to continue running the game after March. Now, you know and I know this is pointless, but government bureaucracies do not know this, so we need to do it. First, you will have to log into your Ubisoft account. This address will vary depending on your language and region. The crew, select your platform, information and troubleshooting. I went with technical issues, I guess general information would work too. Then tell them you heard about the shutdown and you want to know how you can play the game without their support starting in April. They'll either email you later telling you can't, or they just won't reply at all and you'll get an automatic message saying they got it. Either way, save that email response and hold on to it. Because this is proof you tried to resolve the problem with Ubisoft, but they're being jackasses. You may need it in April when you contact your consumer protection agency. Hey, I've got mine. And the last thing you can do that may help, I'm not sure yet, is even if you don't have a receipt for the game, just make some proof you own the crew. This could be a photo of a disc, or a screenshot of your account name and the crew in it. You don't need to send me this, just hold on to it, just in case. They may disappear the game from your account later, who knows? And that about does it for now, for the international plans. I can say that if we keep up this momentum, especially in April, that by the end of this, Ubisoft will notice this on some level. I'm convinced this is the route towards any hope of us stopping companies from killing games. I would not be doing this if I didn't see an opening here. You're going to get my absolute best effort on this. I really think we have a decent shot. So let's do this and get ready for April. And with that framing in mind, now let's talk about the United States. Oh,
Dun, dun, dun.
my. What do I say here? Well, I've learned a lot recently. I guess let's start with what happened since the last video. One
Spoilers,
person was
no
able to
good,
get me in touch with the Electronic
very little
Frontier
good news
Foundation.
here.
It turns out they never got my emails. Go figure. They said they wouldn't be able to help, but then refer me to some attorneys who were also not able to help. Half of them didn't reply. One kind of told me what I already knew, but gave it to me straight. And I won't name names here, but one was actually a little worse than not helping at all. Since in the first email, they said, it's only partly a EULA problem. There are a host of other options for avid gamers to pursue keeping the game alive. A host of other options. Really? So me, wondering what the hell they were talking about, drilled down only to find out, no, they just made that up. And by the third email, I got a different line. There really are not any good answers to this problem. Yeah. I told you guys, false optimism is a pet peeve of mine. But lo and behold, I had a much better lead contact me just from watching the last video. Martin, the Florida lawyer. Martin dislikes this practice almost as much as I do and is personally motivated on it. Now, originally, he had a great plan to not do a class action suit since the scope of those are too large, but instead simply get one really solid client affected by the crew shutdown, so the only damages will be for $60 or whatever they paid for it, then use that case to establish a precedent. Moreover, since he had an axe to grind, he was willing to take a shot at it for $15,000 and do the rest on contingency, knowing he would lose money on this. Now that sounds like a lot, and it is for most of us, but for a lawsuit, that is a bargain. That's like being able to buy a house for $15,000. And more importantly, that's a target we might have been able to fundraise for. Well, after talking with him, Martin did some more digging on his own initiative. He said he spent about a quarter of the day on this and ended up researching a lot of legal information for us. The bad news is that canceled his plans. I'll try to boil down why best I can. First off, I got some things wrong. In my Games as a Services fraud video a few years back, I still stand by pretty much everything I said there, except for the United States. I know now that I completely face-planted on that. Now, some people tried to tell me this back then, or even now, but the thing is, nobody backed it up. Well, one guy halfway did. I'll get to that in a bit. I talked to half a dozen lawyers, maybe 100 or so emails. Nobody told me the court case that established the precedent for this. Martin did. See, if I'm doubtful of something, I need the evidence to prove I'm wrong. Remember a few years back when everyone was getting sued by Warner Brothers for using the Happy Birthday song, and it was common knowledge that they owned the rights to it? Turns out they didn't, and they're being fined $14 million for doing that. That's why verifying this crap is important.
I didn't know about that. I knew Warner Brothers was being pissy about that, but I didn't know they were getting into lawsuit money over that.
Yeah, I kind of knew this.
So I'm going to explain my new understanding of U.S. law.
I knew this. This was before Zaslav took over. Yeah, they were claiming copyright ownership of that song. It's like the oldest copyright in the world. About time it expired.
Yeah. And well, it's Disney. They're going to fight tooth and nail to stretch that copyright as long as possible.
Yeah.
They were
And
not
also
happy about Steamboat Willie going into the public domain.
Yeah, they lobbied before to extend that copyright.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
And Games as a Service the way I would if I was trying to convince myself from a few years back if I traveled back in time. I may still get some details wrong, but it's going to be a hell of a lot more accurate than before. Okay, so in that video, I talked about the distinction between a perpetual license and a subscription license. That still is an important distinction, but that's more of a big deal in other countries. See, the United States also has do whatever the hell you want licenses, which is what Games as a Service generally use. Now, the court case that really laid the mold for all this that frigging nobody told me about, or if they did, I really missed it, was ProCD versus Zeidenberg. The details aren't that important for me, but the important part is this is what established the law that largely governs software, where a lot of it gets handled by the Uniform Commercial Code, and it likes to defer to the end-user license agreement for almost everything. Now, there is some gray area here. I got that partially right, but it's not in a way that's helpful at all. Like, some gray area is whether software is considered a good or a service. That can vary. Also, on whether you're entitled to a refund within about 90 days of purchasing the software. There's some other complications too, but guess what? Ownership of your copy of the game is not one of them. The people saying you own nothing are correct. In the United States, even if you have a physical copy of the game, under US law, all you own is the literal piece of plastic, not any of the data on it itself. If the EULA said you're not allowed to run the game anymore, then continuing to run the game would technically be illegal. Now, obviously, this kind of clashes with reality, since in real-world terms, of course you own a lot of your games. But under the law, you own nothing. Here, I need to dig up that old chart.
Oh god, it's just making me think, if you don't own the games you're buying, it's not piracy, right? Right?
Yeah. Absolutely insane. I'm an American.
I'm Canadian. Just to be upfront. about
Hopefully
that.
there's no legal precedent that's similar to that one in your country.
I have no idea. This is something I do got to do a lot of looking into some more. See if I can provide any
Yeah.
resources for him.
I got this part
Yeah.
all wrong. For the United States, forget games as a service. Do you own your game? I'm dividing this up between a game that has DRM that can't be circumvented, like The Crew, versus DRM that can be circumvented, or no DRM at all. Okay, that clears it up. So yes, in real world terms, you probably own a lot of games. But in every legal capacity, Americans own nothing. Now, I am simplifying a bit. I say you own nothing, but it's all dependent on the end-user license agreement. I'm not aware of any off the top of my head, but I could believe there are EULAs out there that explicitly state that you own your copy of the game. Maybe Tux Racer? I don't know, I'm just guessing. What I do know is I'm betting about 0% of games as a service have EULAs that let you own your game. So for the United States, I got it wrong. I said games as a service is fraud. No, that's incorrect. In order for it to be fraud, you need to have rights. I should have titled it Games as a Service is not fraud because you have no rights. You mostly haven't since 1999, and you probably never will if you're in the USA. I guess that's a little wordy. But yeah, there's no fraud taking place if there are no rights. See, my confusion was I was looking at this from a consumer rights perspective, between a buyer and a seller. But that framing was all wrong. Under the law, it's more like we're animals. You can't defraud an animal, like a squirrel out in your yard. Under the law, it doesn't have any ownership rights either. I said before that EULAs are not legal documents, and while that's still technically true, they may as well be in the US. See, EULAs are a magical playground where companies can do just about anything they want if you install the software. Now, what I said about EULAs not being able to supersede actual laws is also true, but there's a very wide berth that the US gives license agreements. So it has to be really extreme before that kicks in. There is nothing about being able to own what you buy to supersede this. So they have a 6 ways to Sunday. The way Martin explained it to me is they could add a provision that they're allowed to kill your dog. And then when they came and killed your dog, you could try to fight that in court, but you would be on the defensive. The judge would not immediately press charges against Ubisoft as dog killers. Instead, you would have to try to make the case in court that the dog killing provision of your EULA went a bit too far and may run afoul of animal cruelty laws. So you would have.
Oh my god, this is that fucking human Sentai pad episode from South Park all over again.
Yeah.
Like, you think it's a haha out there funny joke, but it really sounds like that's the case in American law.
Yeah, thank goodness for other countries having stronger laws. Hopefully
Yeah.
Canada does too. That
That is, I'm gonna have to do a follow-up on that, honestly.
yeah.
Have to defend yourself of getting out of that provision of the contract. Not that the company would automatically be in violation of the law. And from the last video, remember that bit about some EULAs being unconscionable? Well, even if every court in the US agreed with that about not being able to own your games, it still wouldn't help, because that wouldn't compel Ubisoft or other companies to not destroy the game. At best, it would mean you're simply allowed to try to run the game after they kill it, which would still be almost impossible due to the encryption. You could win every court case on unconscionability, and it would do absolutely nothing for preservation of games. Martin had a few good quotes on this. This cannot be solved by a lawsuit. It has to be an act of Congress. The case law is bad. The precedent is bad. It is only video games where you have this hyper level of anti-consumerism. He also found a great reference if you want more reading on this. Rated M for misleading is a short essay written by another pro-gaming lawyer detailing how bad the situation is. Now this guy was focused more on the problems with pre-ordering and new releases, but it overlaps with the parts I'm most concerned with. And he backs up the law regarding this and puts it in plain English as to what the problem is. I'll link to it in the description. He has a lot of good quotes too. Video game publishers and developers will never have the reason, incentive, or motivation to market, build, and support a video game properly the first time around. No other American industry is given this much room to mislead consumers and then avoid responsibility for its mistakes. The solutions to the issues discussed in this article are not complicated.
Zio, I don't know if anybody actually did do that with their EULA. I think somebody had jokingly put in, like, you must make me pancakes. And then one person had just randomly sent them pancakes because they thought it was funny. But, like, it was always meant to be a joke.
You know, wait. Wait, about that. This is as an aside, but Ross, he made a game dungeon about a game called Go to Hell, and he had like an anecdote about him working at a school with someone, and they decided to do something for Halloween. Like they did like a soul contract for. They did like a social contract in exchange for candy, and like people people signed the contract in order to like get the candy, but in exchange they get the souls of those people. That's just that's like the long and short of it. It was like a joke kind of thing, from what I could tell.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But I guess it holds up in American law, huh? Was
Probably.
GameStation infringed? I cannot confirm nor deny, but it sounds wild enough to be true.
Congress must tackle the issue and provide consumers an additional method of protection, and courts should re-examine how they analyze EULAs. Now this doesn't mean it's literally impossible to fight this in the US courts, but it's about as close as you can get. Since Martin's original plan got tanked, he was still trying to come up with legal gymnastics angles, like finding someone who bought the crew but didn't install it, hence not agreeing to the EULA. Then if the plaintiff refused to accept the cash refund and demanded he receive the product sold, he might be able to have a case in that, but that sounds like such a long shot. And it's the sort of thing I would think a judge would be tempted to throw out as being frivolous, because in a vacuum, it kind of is. It's just the law has shut down every other avenue for trying to own a copy of a game you paid for. There are just no legal options. And if you need further convincing, while Pro CD versus Zeidenberg is not federal law, it became the law in its district, and every other district in the US positively referenced it. So it's effectively the law of the land now. So in theory, you could take this to the Supreme Court, but I'm gonna save time and not explain why the odds of that being successful are so astronomically low, and instead just say that you probably have better odds of getting hit by a meteorite. So I'm about ready to declare the concept of game ownership fully and utterly dead under the legal system of the United States. And to be fair, I did a search through all my emails. There is literally one person who tried to tell me all this and back it up. He did not mention Pro CD versus Zeidenberg, but he did send me this document which had more legalese than my mind was processing at the time. And boom, there it is. Pro CD versus Zeidenberg in the footnotes. I wasn't enough of a lawyer to pick up on that, so I missed it. Oops. In my defense, that video has received over 1 million views, and only one person halfway told me about this case. So the basis for this was not common knowledge, even among lawyers. It is sheer dumb luck we received pro bono, high-quality research from an expensive lawyer to clear this up. I wouldn't have thought I would have been even able to afford this information. And yes, this sucks, but one of my lesser goals with trying to have a lawsuit was to lift the fog on the law regarding game ownership, because I thought it was a gray area. Well, mission accomplished. There's no gray area on this that matters. We own nothing. Even now, it feels schizophrenic talking about this, because objective reality is we own lots of games, but the law is saying we don't. Like if you have an apple in your hand and take a bite out of it, but then a lawyer or a judge says you're not allowed to own apples, you're simply being allowed access to them? Okay, yeah, that's not crazy at all.
My milk!
College humor, old days.
Really what we're seeing is companies finding ways to enforce their dreams of non-ownership, which largely weren't possible in the past. Now they are. Wonderful. Ironically, I'm not even sure if non-subscription
Unless this
always
Game of
online
Dungeons
games
go
even
to hell?
existed when this ruling
don't
was
know.
made. So this is kind of like restricting air travel laws before the balloon was
that was
invented.
the episode
It's
I was
such
talking
bad
about earlier.
law, and it was already set by the time I was in high school. Maybe before some of you were even born. Well, again, sorry I got all this so wrong in my Games as a Services fraud video. I did try. I thought we had rights. My bad. I didn't mean to take everyone down this rabbit hole, including myself. I'll try to make up for it by having the biggest campaign I'm aware of to internationally stop games from being destroyed in April.
Briley, I recommend watching after the end credits.
Okay, good to know. What was I going to say? I'm the type of person that would rather go down this type of rabbit hole and then find out what we actually do or do not have in terms of like consumer rights. Because then we know how we can properly argue for, rights.
So, since under US law we're basically animals, where do we go from here? Well, I'm only seeing two possibilities left for the United States before I declare it hopeless, and only one of them involves not being a millionaire. So there's really only one option left to try before we're checkmated. I am not giving this good odds at all, but I really can't see any downside to trying it either. We'll do what I'm trying to get done globally, which is contact our Consumer Protection Agency come April. In this case, the FTC. This is a long shot, but I don't see this as impossible. Martin did mention a case where the FTC sued Sony for false advertising on the Vita, but considering how that was hardware, I'm still not too hopeful. I mean, on some physical copies of The Crew, it does say expires January 1st, 2099, but that could also be a dead end. Because not only did it not say that on digital copies, but I'm guessing if they did get fined for that, then the only thing that would come of it would be they simply don't put that label on games in the future. So that would still do nothing to save games. I don't care about fining Ubisoft for its own sake. I only want fines if they directly lead to action preventing future games from being destroyed. And I don't think that 2099 label will do that by itself. Anyway, Martin says there are certain points I can coach people on that will make the FTC pay more attention to this than the average complaint would otherwise. I'll be sure to go over those later once I get them. So we may as well take our shot in April just to close the book on this. If we give our best effort to contact the FTC, and I think we'll be able to get a few hundred people, but absolutely nothing comes from that, then we will know the issue of preventing games from being destroyed is impossible under US law. Then I will have learned my lesson and cease pursuing any legal efforts on games in the US whatsoever because it is utterly hopeless for animals like us. God bless America. However,
As much as I really, really want to huff the hopium and win this, so to speak, I'm gonna be real. I don't see good odds. I just hope something good can come of this, especially if we get enough people rallied behind it. Because, I mean, sure, not a lot of people care about The Crew. There's a lot of people that care about video games. There's a lot of people that would be real mad if their video games were taken away. Track posting on the EU and Australia. I definitely agree there. Yeah, not looking too good for political future of America. This is very true.
Yeah, true.
You're having high hopes, Joestar? Well, I'm glad you got them high hopes. Keep them up for all of us.
I have a lot more hope for like other countries because
Fair.
those have ripple effect towards worldwide depending on the country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
the other option, which could work, but I'm not even considering because it's simply unaffordable, is lobbying. Maybe I'm too cynical, but my perception is that laws get changed based on what interests with money want in the United States, not by popular demand.
Whoa, why didn't I think of that? Just have money.
Yeah, the problem with that is like
It costs
there's some
so
there is a
much to do lobbying,
yeah.
but it's probably
Yeah,
the most effective thing.
I don't even know if I agree with that because the bigger
Well, the most
corporations are gonna always
effective in
outspend
terms-
and out lobby you. So even this is a long shot, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah,
Even
it's
if he's a
long shot, but
millionaire.
I was making the broader point that lobbying as compared to like a class action lawsuit or a consumer complaint or something like that, I forget. the lobbying itself would be the most effective thing, even if we wouldn't be the most influential there, but it would still be way more effective because like that has
Yeah.
the potential to actually change the law, which is what we want. Because right now we just
Yeah.
gotta work within the law.
It's just a coincidence when that happens.
I'm against like the money and politics system in general. I think there should be laws prohibiting that in general, so
Oh
everyone
yeah,
has a level
absolutely,
playing
I
field.
agree. People should, if you're working in politics, you should be not making corporate money. I don't know why that's allowed. It's just fucked up.
There is that famous
Yeah.
Princeton study on Congress that kind of agrees with me. So that means it's not literally impossible to change this, but it is impossible for anyone who isn't a millionaire or else has serious inroads with millionaires to fund it. So that might happen eventually, but it won't be because of anything I'm doing or can influence. It's kind of like trying to predict when an earthquake is going to be. It could be soon, it could be never. I mean, if there are any Scrooge McDucks out there who do want that to happen, I won't turn them away, but I'm not making any plans on that. I don't plan my life around winning the lottery either. And speaking of funds, I'm undecided if there will be a fundraiser now, since the main expense was going to be hiring a US lawyer, but Martin from Florida just saved us a hell of a lot of money on that front. It all depends on if we have enough activities to warrant having one, and it's pretty much all going to be for activity outside of the US. So far I have potentially paying for an Australian lawyer, and maybe paying for some mentions on German and French gaming channels, all of which are still up in the air at the moment. I'm still willing to fund several hundred of this out of pocket, but I need more details. I won't have any fundraiser unless I know about how much we need and exactly where it's going. So again, feel free to give feedback if you know how to best allocate something like that. So that is where things stand in the US. As you can see, things look so much more promising on this issue abroad than in the United States, where it couldn't be much worse. But remember, we don't need a win in the US to win this war. We just need to make it more expensive to destroy games in other countries than not. Now, I would end it here, but since it's an update video, I wanted to follow up on a few things before I go. The first thing, I've said this before, but there's a particular comment about what I'm doing that keeps popping up like some sort of weed. Feel free to timestamp this part if you see it again. I've seen comments before of people saying something like, "This is ridiculous. You can't expect companies to keep running the servers forever." Let me be really clear here, guys. I am not now, nor have I ever advocated for that in any way.
I'm laughing because I got one of those comments on my last video.
I think what's happening
Oh,
is the
same.
propaganda
I
from
have
the industry has
I have
been
an
so
anecdote after he explains everything here.
Okie dokie.
effective that younger people literally don't understand how aspects of games work now. So let's go over this quick. I think the problem is some people see an online-only game and only see two options. The first is to host the game forever. Yeah, that is unreasonable and unrealistic. I agree. So the only other option they see is shut down the game forever. Well, if that's your entire worldview for online games, option 2 sucks, but it's the only realistic option, right? Oh, but wait, what's this? What's this? Option 3. Patch the game to enable local hosting. This is what I'm advocating for. I honestly don't blame younger people for not knowing this option exists.
Is people talking about game development when they don't know about game development or how programming works? Oh,
Yeah.
it's not that hard to do. These companies just make it the live service so that you feel pushed into that position and then you squeeze out all the money for them. God damn it.
Yeah.
It's how the majority of online games work from the 90s to the mid-2000s. When a company does this, the game is safe forever. You know how Epic delisted and shut down the servers for a lot of the Unreal Tournament games a year ago? Well, Unreal Tournament, 2003, 2004, have had their central servers shut down, have no more support from the company, and yet you can still play them all online with other people today. I know, this is witchcraft to a few of you. Now you might be saying, yeah, but those are small arena games with only up to 64 people. True, but hey, remember how Blizzard released World of Warcraft Classic? That's because so many people were illicitly hosting an entire MMO.
Yeah.
Because a server emulator was made for the game and was so popular it was giving them actual competition. So people have been privately hosting games with thousands of players online at the same time on their own without any intervention from the company for years.
And then they come in and crush them. Rip Nexus, wow.
Except for really fringe scenarios, it's just propaganda to think that companies can't let people do this anytime they want. For some games, doing this is a very easy transition. For others, it's much harder, but that's all the publisher's choice. And it's all kind of irrelevant because they're always just excuses. Allowing the customer to host the game when support ends is such a fundamental aspect of an online game that it honestly feels insane to me when people.
Didn't Blizzard retroactively update existing copies of Warcraft 3 to make them online only at one point? That one I don't know about. I thought it was they did the remaster and then you couldn't play the original version anymore.
The original versions are still, you can still play them if you like pirate them. They're not relying on an essential server.
But like
The way
when you get them through the BattleNet launcher, which is what Blizzard forces you to use, it gets
yeah. At least there's a
let
version of the
people in
game in that case that doesn't require. That's not a lot of. There's a lot of other games that require essential server and that aren't as lucky in that front.
Yeah, and then they could just add a little bit of code and you can locally host it.
Yeah.
People don't understand this. Hey, you know what else is important to a game? You know how a lot of games want you to press a button to start? Most people agree that is important to work. What if you pressed a button and nothing happened? Would you accept excuses from companies that they couldn't fix that? No? But wait, what if they said it was a lot of work to fix that because of how they coded the game and they weren't lying? Then would you accept their excuses? Or would you just call them a bunch of clowns? It's the exact same principle, guys, just coming from the other end. I'm sure people will make that comment again in the future about me wanting companies to run their servers forever, but hopefully this beats it back a little bit. Oh, and I'm only giving a free pass to younger people saying that, because if all you've ever played is Fortnite or Roblox, then yeah, you wouldn't know this. But if you're in your mid-30s or older making comments like that, then you're a clown and should know better. Not that I have a problem with clowns per se, but do you have to clown this hard and right here? Maybe you do. Alright, just a couple more things. I realized after the previous video, when comparing the Crew to the Crew 2, the Crew 2 actually removed content. Yeah, somebody made a comparison video showing entire small towns disappearing from the original game. Wow, that sucks. So I think that means the Crew is still the second largest driving game ever made, since it has more to drive on than the sequel. Oh, and on that City Synth video I showed last time, some didn't understand that this was generated from 2D footage. This is why I'm so optimistic on AI. Because yeah, we might really be able to rip assets from video effectively on the scale the Crew needs in the future. And by coincidence, I recently ran into a project where somebody recreated some Need for Speed 3 tracks inside Unreal. This is kind of what I've been talking about. Now I'm assuming this didn't have any AI involved, he probably just ported assets straight out of the original game. So think this, except using AI to rip assets from the game or even just from footage. If we were to fail on every legal front internationally, then stuff like this will literally be the only option left for game preservation. We're on a weird timeline. Okay, that's it for now. I'll have another update later if it's needed. Otherwise,
yeah, like I'm gonna keep playing the video, but like with something like the Crew, if nothing can be done of it, the only way to potentially play it after it gets shut down would be to have somebody actually crack the game and then set it to local hosting. But what are the odds somebody's going to do that? And you'd have to rely on that for like every video game going forward. Or they could just produce it in-house that way, but no, they don't wanna.
Yeah.
This guy seems like he has a pretty practical plan. I definitely agree. He seems to know what he's talking about.
but
Yeah.
we're gonna hit back on this in April. The question is how hard? Let's make it hard. See ya.
I do like it hard.
After credits.
Wait a minute, Minecraft supports private servers. Okay, I take back what I said. Young people don't have an excuse to not know about local hosting. None of you have an excuse. You should all know better. The end.
True. True, PogChamp.
Yeah. Okay, now to the anecdote I wanted to say regarding this. Yeah, surprise, surprise, it has something to do with VR chat.
Just remember, we're on YouTube. Can't get too spicy.
Yeah, it's not like that. Um, so Yeah, I'm trying to remember the. Bear with me. So like there had to have some backstory about like a VR chat about like a controversy for that happened in VR chat like I think a year and a half ago. We were watching 2 years ago. They VR chat was like implementing easy anti-cheat and and in that the downside to that, the intended effect of that is like to prevent like people from ripping avatars and such and crashing people. But the effect the like another like an unintended effect of it was it disabled even like legitimate mods that people use for things like quality of life improvements and people
better
and people
physics
that need
tracking or
it
something.
as in like quality of life improvements like things that weren't even in the game until like after the backlash, but also things for like disabled people that they need accessibility options that mods allowed but were like disabled with this update, and like it was a really bad backlash. So they had to they didn't remove easy anti-cheat, but they had to backtrack in like other ways, like giving people features like they didn't usually used to have. Like for instance, this flying drone wouldn't more than likely would not be there, or at the very least be as quickly implemented if there was no like backlash.
Yeah, public backlash does excuse me, does tend to
Yeah,
start fires under them.
and in the aftermath of it, like something I think should have like had more backlash in my opinion was there was like a server emulator for VRChat that someone was developing, and then the VRChat people like cease and desisted that once they got wind of it. Like
Why?
even though it might have been necessary to preserve the game if it were to shut down, and if it were to shut down. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's shitty that that's always a risk, especially when there's people always trying to get, or there's always somebody new. It's like I'm just starting to get into VR
yeah.
chat, and part of me is wondering maybe I should just go over to chill out VR.
Yeah, that's what people did, but like it didn't really last. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems people are tending to stick with VR chat.
Yeah. And Chill's not immune to this either. Like they are also based on a central server, as far as I know. So it's a problem with them too.
VR chat does have some chill people. Oh, absolutely. And some very frustrating people.
Yeah. And case in point, like I was I was surprised about how many people defended that cease and desist. Like I was arguing on the grounds of preservation, and they were making semantic arguments like VRChat isn't a game, it's a platform, it can't be preserved. Does not sound like a distinction without like a difference? Yeah, because it's they're trying to argue like VR chat is like the entire internet when it's not.
Wait, some people's bubbles are VR chats the entire internet?
Like they're saying that it cannot be preserved, even though like there was a server emulator effort that got cease and desisted.
Yeah, literally everything we make can be preserved digitally. Like all of our digital media.
Yeah,
can be.
and yeah,
It's so
and
frustrating.
one person was like defending it on the grounds of like it's a platform, not a game. You cannot be reserved. And I don't think that's a distinction without I think that is a distinction without a difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, like
And the thing, and I
it has
also
game elements to it, and then it also just has social media platform elements to it. Some people just use it to talk with others in what feels like a more personable way. Some people will just use it for the games and the immersive experience.
And you don't need it to be relying on a central server to have that. It can be like decentralized, like, and people can run it off of local hosting.
Yeah, like the way it used to be for online gaming. I remember playing Halo on the PC back in the day, like Halo 1. That one where you had to find lobbies to join.
Yeah.
Unironically, it was easier to make friends through Halo 1 than Halo 3.
Yeah.
Because like you find maps that you like and you go to them a little more regularly, and then you start becoming friends with people. You never see people again in matchmaking in Halo 3 or Infinite, whatever the new one is.
Also, I lost my train of thought for a bit.
Sorry about that.
You're fine. Yeah, I also clipped Ross's games as a services fraud video, like the last section with all like the arguments, including the you can't run the game forever. Like you can't expect for them to run the servers forever. And it had the counter argument of, I'm not trying to get them to run it forever. I'm trying to get them to give the people the means to run it themselves. They don't need to support anything. And like people like defended like
They just don't care. And they want to piss people off. That's a lot of the people, or a lot of the vibes I get from the people that are like pushing back against Accursed over this.
Yeah. Also related to this, I was also debating this over on another Discord server and like a channel like dedicated to it, to like the AC thing, and I brought up the cease and desist, and like this, and I said like, I don't know how people can overlook this. This should be way bigger of a controversy.
People should be raising
because it concerns the existence of the game itself, the existence of the game itself as a whole.
Yeah, and we can use this to set a precedent for future events. Like, if you're going to shut down this live service that people are invested in, look at what's going to be, or look at what will happen.
Yeah.
Make it available for local hosting. Oh my god.
Yeah. And then they're also giving excuses for like they like people can just easily make a server emulator. It's easy peasy. It's not easy peasy, otherwise we wouldn't be having this discussion. And Ross mentions that in the Games as a Services fraud video. That's the point he makes. It's not easy, it's not reasonable. It's not like a reasonable chance to repair the game.
Yeah,
Like
no,
he
they just don't
wants
like
a
hearing the arguments about it, so they just want to shut things down.
yeah, and like the like the to like support their point, they try to use like open source ports of games that never required a central server in the first place, and like they were not listening to what I was saying. And like another argument I encountered is like, oh, there's proprietary licenses. They can't preserve the game. It's too hard. The proprietary licenses that you can't they can't do that. Like it's another cop out. Of course they can
Like,
do that. They're the ones that
I will.
acquired
Mhm.
licenses in the first place. So if those licenses when those licenses break down, they can use that time to give people a reasonable chance to repair the game, or like make it patch it to enable like local hosting or offline play or anything like that, or at least refund people.
Oh, absolutely. Like, what was I going to say?
And a lot
Right.
of the licenses I think they mentioned are like Havoc, which is it's not really relevant unless it's like the relevant like code I'm mentioning is like the on the server side. Yeah, in order to like have that information, enough information to run the game locally. That's all
Yeah.
we're asking.
Like, what I was going to say a bit ago was that I will say it's not as easy to make it or to change the programming of a game to be like running off of local hosting servers. It's not exactly like one line of code and then you're done, but it's also not like rocket surgery. It is definitely possible to do, and the big
On their end, it's not
variable
rocket. It's not rocket surgery. On
the big
Consumer's
variable would be
end,
how complicated they made their server code
yeah.
itself. So like,
It's also the encryption.
mhm.
Yeah, and
So it's something that
for
honestly
people.
developers should be keeping in mind for like, we
Yeah,
want to have this as a subscription service for excuse me, for as long as possible, but then when we can't milk every cent and dime out of it, we might as well let people that are still enjoying it enjoy it without any cost of our own. Just let them host their own servers.
yeah,
They can still think of us positively. They can still have their game. There's no community outcry.
yeah.
I just
Yeah,
don't know why they don't do it.
yeah, it's because like it costs only a little bit of money and time and effort to do, and like killing it takes no effort at all.
Yeah, I'm really leaning towards they're just ghouls and don't like people to have happiness.
Yeah. And what was I gonna say?
I think it was a thing. That's helpful.
Um. Lost my train of thought again. Sorry about that.
Oh, it happens. It has happened to me more than once.
True. I'm. um. Legal hobbies of plays are the only reason we have a bunch of Shakespeare, if I remember correctly. The future of people will. Yeah. Yeah. That's true as well.
can't confirm that directly, but it lines up with already the stuff that I've kind of figured out, I guess, with growing up and becoming an adult,
Yeah.
where there are definitely things that we have today that were illegally produced back in the day, and like copies made of like, what was that pamphlet? What was it? It's something about gay people, like way back in the day.
Mm.
I'd have to go
Yeah.
diving for it. But like that was illegal when it was made, and then I believe it was replicated, so that would be illegal copies. I don't even know if you can get your hands on the or a replica of the document itself these days. I could not find it myself when diving into it before. But I have seen, like, there have been other pieces of documentation that we do have that reference that the existence of, like, the pamphlet of the gays. But that's like a complete side tangent.
um.
But I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts regarding legacy media, preservation of games. Anything else you'd like to include?
Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, but yeah, this is such an important issue for me. Yeah, and I wish like the narrative wasn't like spun, like to make people like believe that the like games cannot be preserved. When they can be, like sometimes very easily, sometimes not. Like
I get that. Also, have a good sleep, Al. Thanks for stopping by, and it's been good to hear from you.
Good night,
again.
Al. Good night, Al. And
Yeah, there's
yeah,
a lot of
the
people
games
that just...
games that like require like a central server, they don't need to die. Like
Yeah, they don't actually need to run off of a dedicated centralized server. It's just
yeah,
what people are being sold.
Yeah, and yeah, the thing is they can't like they what was I gonna say? Game
At least you keep...
there are like plenty of that. I think I remember now. Like it's like it's not really reasonable to assume like that the argument that people were making against me is like it's really easy to they're making it like it's easy peasy for people to make a server emulator without like the service like any like thing to go on when a game shuts down. When it's really not. It's rocket surgery for the people that enjoyed the game
Yeah, like for
and
the
had it shut
average
down.
for the average
Yeah.
person, they just lose that game. For your average furry, sure, they could probably
Yeah.
program an emulator. I
Yeah.
kid, but holy shit, there are a lot of furries in the IT.
Yeah. Also trans people.
There's also like a large overlap between furries and trans people.
True.
The two biggest groups in the furries that I know of, it's trans people and gay cis men. And those are like the two biggest parts of the furry communities. At least out where I am.
And also yeah, it's like the server software is with the developers, so it's should be a lot easier for them to just mock up a server emulator. But there's like they make constant like excuses not to. When it's not, it's reasonable for them and not for us. And I hope it's obvious why.
Because they're ghouls.
Yeah, and that's all I really have to say about that for now. Oh, oops.
Small.
It's the app the field of view on the camera.
Oh, it's
And
a
then
sensitive change.
yeah, I accidentally pressed the trigger button on my
Oopsie.
controller. So yeah, that's all I really had to say.
Well, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me here. Can't wait for the segment to come up to be uploaded.
Honestly, I have a backload of content right now. I have no idea when this video is going up, but I kind of think the sooner the better. Though
I understand. No rush.
definitely going to be talking about it more in April. See what else we can do.
Yeah, I hope to be there when that happens.
But yeah, feel free to shout yourself out. Plug anything you'd like to before you head off.
Hey, I'm Nessie. You might find me on Twitter under the name and at Nessie Thick. Good night.
Alrighty, take care.
I'm not going right now. I'm just saying that at the end of the segment.
Oh, fair enough. Thanks for watching. Like it if you like it, dislike if you didn't. Let me know in the comments why you think I'm wrong. Check out the community on Discord. And remember, if you can't be the sharpest tool in the shed, you can always be the hoe. Just want to take a quick second and thank all the beeps that have joined my channel through the memberships. So thank you, Joestar, Maxi Kitty, JM, and Hero.